Welcome back, everybody. This is Tucker. Let's talk weather. I'm tracking our next severe weather threat, where you should be prepared for upgrades in this forecast. And are you feeling the pollen out there yet? Well, if you are, get ready for things to get worse, at least in some areas. I'll tell you where coming up. What's up, everybody? Hope you stayed safe with the severe weather that we just had on Monday, and I'm tracking more storms today, actually. This is being recorded Tuesday evening, and things luckily starting to die down, but still activity out there. That said, we're looking at the next few days, so I'm going to jump into the forecast. I'll give you my thoughts, and perhaps you'll hear a few things you haven't heard anywhere else yet. Let's jump into the forecast and get you prepared. I'm taking you here to Wednesday, our severe weather outlook, featuring a level 2 risk across portions of Oklahoma, Texas, and Arkansas. We got a level 1 risk farther to the north and east, including states like Missouri, Illinois, Indiana, Kentucky, and Ohio. What I'll say right now is I don't expect this level 1 or level 2 area to be expanded a lot, but I would be surprised if we don't see a level 3 risk issued somewhere in here, likely for a tornado threat. Let me show you the current tornado threat we have right now. It's actually a 5% risk if you follow the Storm Prediction Center. That's sort of a medium-low level. I do expect that to be upgraded to a more medium level in there, as the potential for supercells appears pretty high in the environment that I've seen, and we'll talk more about these details ahead. I'm also going to show you our severe weather risk here on Thursday. That's a very broad level 1 out of 5 risk. This I do not expect is going to stay level 1. In fact, I expect two things here. I'd be surprised if this level 1 risk is not expanded a bit wider, especially out here. And I would also be surprised if we don't see a pretty big area upgraded to level 2, especially in this area here. So I do believe that this is going to be upgraded, as I've been looking at the potential for tornadoes along with damaging wind and large hail. And I believe the wind and tornadoes are largely why they will be expanding this threat. Let me also show you Friday. Nothing there right now. But what I do expect is out here in New England, and we haven't really had severe weather this way yet, but actually not just New England, but across a good chunk of the Northeast out here, I would be surprised if we don't see at least a level 1 risk, if not a level 2 risk. And I could see that level 2 risk even getting into portions of New England out here as well. So something to watch. And if you're wondering why I'm forecasting these things, why don't I show you? By the way, guys, if you haven't already subscribed, be sure to do so. You'll get regular weather updates from an expert, and I will answer all of your questions right here in the comments. Starting here on Wednesday morning, you can see some leftover storms still occurring across portions of the central U.S. Those will eventually die out, and it's this storm system here that we need to watch, because as that strengthens, it will be increasing the severe weather risk. I'm going to move this into the afternoon, and you're going to see that first wave of storms begins to move away, and a second wave of storms forms behind it. Our storm system, our low pressure system, I should say, will be right in the middle of that, and those storms are going to pose that severe weather risk, especially down towards Texas, Oklahoma, and Arkansas, and that's where that tornado risk will be quite high. As we move into your Thursday, you can see our storm system moving northwards across the Midwest at this point. As we get into the afternoon, more storms, quite numerous, begin to pop up, and you're looking at a pretty broad area where we may see severe weather. In fact, I would be surprised if we don't. Could even be a low severe threat in the southeastern U.S. here as well. And that storm system at about 1,000 millibars is pretty strong. It'll be pulling very moist air farther north. The jet is pretty strong out there too. Again, I'd be surprised if that severe weather threat is not upgraded just as a result. Then as we get into your Friday, notice our storm system actually strengthens further as it moves into New England. We're still going to have that warm Gulf feed. You can see it basically along those black lines, those isobars going into New England. You have storms that form, and that should be providing us a severe weather risk as we get into Friday as well. Let me show you some of the finer details too. If we take a closer look at the severe weather in Texas, Oklahoma, and Arkansas here on Wednesday, you're going to see in the afternoon and evening primarily, we see those storms pop up and begin to form a line. Now, if we take a look at some of the parameters, some of the pieces of the atmosphere in that line, you can see our curved hodograph. That red line is curved. That means there's spin in the atmosphere. We certainly have plenty of instability. When that white line is separated from the red line, that tells us there is instability that's present. And when our numbers here, that 700 to 500 number, if that is above, we'll call it about 6, there is plenty of instability for hail. And certainly we have other factors in the storm that will be supporting that too. Continuing through Thursday, we see an initial round of showers and storms in the morning. This could prevent a larger scale upgrade, because if these clouds hang around, there won't be enough instability for storms in the afternoon. But assuming they do, we will see storms begin to pop back up, and there is the potential, like I said, for severe weather. Again, I'll take you to some of the weather data I'm seeing here. Not a lot of spin out here, so the tornado threat will stay low, but what I do see is, again, plenty of separation between that white line and red lines. There's a lot of energy out there for storms, of course, and because there's a bit of a gap at the bottom between the green and red lines, that tells us the air is a bit drier near the ground, and that helps damaging wind. So I believe we'll see an upgrade due to the damaging wind threat for the most part. As for the Northeast and New England, we see the same possible issue with some showers and clouds hanging around early on. But assuming storms do form in the afternoon, here's what we're looking at. A lot of the storms on the north side of this are actually not going to be surface-based and won't provide a severe threat. But across the southern half of New England, again, I do believe we have enough there for an isolated tornado threat, just enough spin, and enough here for a damaging wind risk. Large hail, I'm not so sold on. There may be some large hail, but damaging wind, certainly a possibility. And again, that's largely thanks to the drier air we have near the ground here and the warming that we'll get in the afternoon. I also like looking at some of the machine learning stuff here. This is from Colorado State University. Here's your Wednesday risk. Again, they have that higher tornado threat out there. Your hail and wind threats down there, reasonable, but the tornado threat is really what I believe will be driving an upgrade here, and this data seems to suggest the same. On Thursday, again, you can see this pretty broad area. That level 2 risk would be shaded in yellow. We'll see how far north it gets. There's potential, but it looks as though the greatest risk is going to be here across southern Indiana, southern Illinois, out into Kentucky, Tennessee, some of those places, a bit on the southern end. And then here on Friday, again, it's also highlighting many of the areas I was talking about. I'll be looking for some upgrades in what this is suggesting, but as a whole, I do think it's on track with what I've been saying, and I actually looked at this after my forecast, so it was good. It sort of verified these thoughts, and we'll see if the Storm Prediction Center agrees in the coming days. If you like the warm weather, if you're dealing with allergies, all of those kinds of spring things, this is what you should be paying close attention to as we begin the month of May. It's our big picture pattern. Let me show you what I'm looking at here. And as I put this into motion, we're going to begin to see our big players evolve as we get into the first week of the month. I'm looking at this first weekend, the 3rd and 4th. We see this big ridge of warm air begin to develop in the north central U.S. We also have this trough here, this cooler air mass diving south into the western U.S. As we get into the first week, we see those two features begin to get locked in. As we move into the second week of May here, you still see that cooler air mass settling in across the southeastern U.S. You see this very warm air mass taking over a good chunk of the northern and eastern part of the country. This is subject to change a little bit, but I am seeing a lot of agreement on our data. And as we continue into the early middle parts of the month here, you can see, again, this ridge really likely to keep spring a bit farther north and that cooler air likely to stay a bit farther south. I'll have a May update coming out here too, but this is what we start the month with. And in terms of temperatures here, you're going to see, again, those red colors indicating warmer than average temps, those blue colors cooler than average. And as we continue into the middle of the month, you're going to see those cooler colors really settle in across the southwestern U.S. and those warmer colors, that warmer air, really taking over much of the northern and eastern United States here. So spring may continue to accelerate in the north, where we've already seen things starting to bloom, and continue to keep us warm as we're looking at here into the early middle parts of the month, at least across the northern U.S. and eastern U.S. Again, that cooler air may end up migrating farther towards the central U.S. And of course, this is going to impact the bloom, which we can see right here as well. And what you're looking at is not trees, but flowering plants. The bloom so far has made it pretty far north, but we still have a much more northerly trend to go. And you're going to see this really accelerate northwards this week, thanks to where that warm air is. If you're in the south and you got bad allergies, well, it's actually likely to improve as we continue into spring. If you're in the north and you're being hit now, the first 2 weeks of May may be pretty bad this year because we're seeing trees begin to reach full bloom, and those flowering plants, that bloom is going to accelerate much farther northwards as we start off the month. So kind of a double whammy. And certainly you are seeing the areas that haven't bloomed yet are the areas that are expected to see the highest temperature anomalies. So just get ready because spring may be coming in hot here. And with that, we'll finish things up. As always, guys, thanks for being here. Be sure to let me know where you're watching from and check back for updates. I'll have a lot more coming on the channel soon, and we'll keep you safe whenever severe weather strikes. So like I said, we'll see you back here next time.